Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. This is our first session of our Mentorship Monday calls. Thanks so much for joining us. And I'm Tom Miller, if we've never met before. And this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. Um, and really, really looking at the topics that come up during our weekly inner circle, which many of you are members of, or coaching calls or anything else that's happening, and just really try to put just a new take around it. So you've got some professional development that you can bring back, some reflection tools that you can think on. So every Monday I'll be here live and I'll do a little bit of a teaching and then we'll leave the queue open for anybody who wants to share and I'll be having like a special space on our YouTube page and our podcast so folks can listen to the replays and have access from whenever they want, from wherever they want. So really want to just think about this leadership moment that we're in from reflection to direction, right? So uh, in life, you're either the disruptor or you're the one being disrupted. And so, you know, the school leader, especially a charter school leader, is in constant disruption. Okay, your whole job is disruption. Maybe it's the only thing consistent about your school leadership role is that you're going to be disrupted at some point from the day. But today, I want us to think about a different level of disruption. And charter schools were birthed in the early 90s in Minnesota. I think it was 1992, 91, 92. They were created to disrupt the system, to rethink education, to innovate, to do what traditional school systems were not able to do effectively at the time, or some folks thought so. But now, 40 years later, 30 years later, right? 30 to 40 years later, depending where you're at, charter schools are no longer the main disruptors, right? They're being disrupted themselves, and it's, the competition's not the school system, it's school choice, it's alternatives, it's changing expectations, it's expectations from parents, expectations from staff, right? It's different, generation of, students and families, education's different, school looks different, school feels different. So what I want to create this space for each week is where we to come together as leaders and we talk about how to future-proof our charter schools, right? Future-proof our private schools or whatever school you're in charge of or your business, however you're listening to this. And it starts with this. There's never a time where we stop thinking like disruptors. There's never a time where we stop thinking like disruptors. And so some of you may have heard this if you were at the gala the other day. So, but there's five strategies of, disruptors. And so I want to keep on hitting on these because this is where I want us to focus our time and attention to. Disruptors, they see more and they do more before others. Disruptors, they don't wait for change, they prepare for it. They're preparing themselves for it. And so there's seeds of recognition, right? There's seeds, and then there's weeds of integration. And in every leader needs to sow seeds to cultivate strong culture, to cultivate new recruits, to cultivate development in people. And in the meantime, you're weeding out everything that doesn't belong. And it doesn't matter. Uh, weeds are going to grow where weeds are going to grow. They're relentless, they're resilient, but seeds are too. But seeds definitely need to be nurtured, right? Seeds definitely need to be nurtured. Weeds grow where there's the I can't and naysayers, and um, we don't want to surround ourselves with that. We want to think about what could we do versus what can we do. What could we do versus what can we do? Disruptors' second thing is they challenge the current model. Disruptors ask questions that others are afraid to ask, right? Why does school look this way? Why does learning happen this way? Why are we doing it this way? Is this getting us the best results that we want? Because innovation begins where comfort ends, right? Because you're planting these seeds, these seeds are systems, right? These seeds are strategies. These seeds are questions, right? They're awareness questions. All right, number three, disruptors focus on people. They don't build systems first. They build around the people, right? They grow the system around the talent and execution of the people. And, people being students, families, staff, community, partnerships, anybody who can help the organization move forward. And if you're an owner of my book, The 10 Indicators of High Performing Charter Schools, uh, we're going through a study right now, and we're talking about indicator four, right? Which if I could go back and rename it, I would call it the people systems because there are 12 specific strategies just in that chapter about how to grow and develop people. So as a leader, that's your job, right? Your job is to develop the talents of the people in your organization. So repeat, right? They see more and do more before others. They challenge the current model. They focus on people. Number four, they move faster. Large systems move slowly. Charter schools were designed to move fast, right? And this is an advantage. It's a distinct, unique advantage. It's a responsibility. I would say that charter schools are given a mile, but sometimes we only take an inch. How are we making sure we're really challenging? We're asking the questions about how can we move faster? How can we get that results, quicker? We don't have to wait for all these layers of bureaucracy to allow us to move forward in a new direction, a direction that our community and our people are telling us we need to go. And number five, they reinvent themselves. Leaders, they don't wait to be disrupted. They are the disruptors. They don't protect the past. They build on the future. And you can create more when you start thinking from the future, not just reacting to the present, okay? Not just reacting to the present. So if we're going to lead the future, we have to understand who we're serving. The next generation is totally different. They're fast, preparing for a world that looks nothing like any of us grew up in. So the question comes, are we building schools for the past? Or are we designing them for the future? So I want to step into the lesson with thinking on that. Are we back to that question? Are we building schools for the past? Are we designing them for the future? I'm going to let that sit for a second. So this is where you move into these three levels of thinkers. Okay. The first is the historian, the second is the reporter, and the third is the futurist. Okay. And so the question is, past or future is exactly where leadership has to start to separate itself because leaders tend to see the world in one of those three ways: historian, reporter, or the future. And so let's talk about each one of those, right? And we'll talk about it through a story that we all went through. 6 years ago, we all went through one of the most disruptive moments we've ever experienced. When COVID happened, we were all forced to take our brick and mortar schools and shift them to virtual schools, right? With very little information, no history to really help us solve a problem, right? We just had to do it. Now, I've had the opportunity to work with, over 100 schools since that time, many of them very intimately. And what I saw was incredible leadership under pressure. But I've also been seeing something else. And 6 years later, as we've come out of COVID, many leaders still weren't planning forward. They were continuously trying to go back to normal, right? What did normal look like? So when we went through this disruption, this major disruption across our globe, but we didn't always change how we were thinking about it. Decisions were being made based upon how do we get back to where we were right? How do we restore what we had instead of what should we build next? How do we take this opportunity, this disruption, and build for the future? And see, that's the danger of disruption. If it doesn't change how you think, it only becomes something that you survive, not from something that you're growing from. Okay. So, case in point, a school that was really struggling because they kept trying to get back to normal, right? Well, we'll do two examples. A school that just wanted to get back to where we were, and then versus a school that adapted and really, really thrived, right? Like a school that took all that, staffing structure, took those ESSER funds, right? Completely changed, how they did school with their technology and put a, device in everybody's hand, right? They are struggling now because they didn't shift and prepare because some of them are bloated with their staff. Some of them are really strapped because they're trying to replace all the technology that the ESSER funds once paid for. And they've created a new norm, but they can't keep up with it, right? Because they weren't thinking ahead versus, a different leader. So we're not going back to that. We're building forward. We're building forward, right? We're building forward. So the historian, right, in this mindset says we've always done it this way. They're always trying to get back to what the past was, and they can easily get stuck. The leader, right, the reporter, the leader number two, the reporter, basically their job is just to report on all the things all the things now, gather all the information. And they get overwhelmed. And what happens is, because they spend so much time gathering all the information, the future is already past them because our schools, our day is going so fast, right? So you got the historian who's stuck in the past, the way we've always done things. You've got the reporter that's really telling you all the reasons why it won't happen. But I want us to drive us toward is the futurist. Here's where we're going, right? Here's where we're going. A vision for the future, aligning their team to get there. And when I look back at, COVID leadership, right? That COVID model, the leaders who grew the most weren't the ones that managed the disruption best. They were the ones that used it to redesign the future, to redesign their future. And so I think about a couple of leaders, one being Ted Duncan, breakthrough thinking. Ted's part of our inner circle. He's one of our coaches. And when he was at, Brevard Academy pre-COVID, Ted was a big idea guy, but wasn't really able to execute, right, at a very high level because he didn't have the people around him, right? Or he may have had the people around him, but he wasn't maybe utilizing them at their best. And so, Ted thought that the school was on his back and he had to do it all. But then what I started to see Ted do is really study human, behavior, right? And really to self-reflect and build awareness on himself. And then at the time he started to make sure that he was growing the people around him. He was recruiting for the holes that they had, right? Because he knew that in his county, Brevard Academy had to be something different for this very rural mountain area community. How were we being a community school? How are we giving back to the community? And instead, Ted was trying to do it all, right? And after COVID, I've seen this rebirth uh, of Ted. He's really started to think, differently. He'll throw out a big idea, but he'll tell his team, it's okay if we don't do it right now. Like I'm okay with this. Tell me, is this the right time, right? So Ted has used two tools, DISC and the Working Genius, to really understand his team's, the complex nature of leading a team and the complex nature of leading humans, right? But he's made it his mission. He's made it his mission to better understand himself so he can better understand the people around him him, and as a result, Brevard's having its greatest achievements that it's ever had in areas of academics and operations and enrollment and fundraising and community engagement, right? He's just one example. There's lots of examples in our community that have done breakthrough thinking using disruption to create a better result. Jennifer Killen is another one that comes, to mind. She's the head of Piedmont Community School, charter school in Gaston. And Jennifer, years ago, a lot of people may not know this. Piedmont, it's a K-12 school. The board voted to close their high school within her first year or two. Now, first, let me just start with this. Jennifer was a substitute teacher at Piedmont. She's grown from substitute teacher to the head of that school for over a decade now. One of the most successful schools we have in the state of North Carolina. Substitute to head of school, right? So her thinking has had to change all through those years, right? But in her second or third year, the high school was voted to close right there. And of course, the community went crazy. It's probably the first time that they really put a lot of thought and effort into the high school, that it was important. And so the board rescinded it, right? And there was always this, thinking that the high school was holding them back, right? This was the belief at the time. But Jennifer, what she did is she went out and recruited a high school principal, a rock star in the community, a man with integrity. His name is Ernie Bridges. Influence, vision. And with just a few years with Ernie at the head, the high school went from worst to first. It expanded to build a $24 million facility, right? It's almost tripled its overall enrollment from that point. It's the best public school in Gaston County. The leaders every year of that school are getting nominated and winning leaders of the year for the county. Not just school leaders, leaders of the year. Because I want to teach you something from maybe one of the most important books I've ever read. When you think about, like, is this like, okay, Tom, right? These were just really good leaders who did something different, but they weren't that way beforehand. See, the disruption made them think differently and grow themselves, differently. And so this book here, As a Man Thinketh, if you've been in my community for 10 years or more, I've probably given you a copy of this book. It's by James Allen. Depending upon the version you have, it's not 65 pages. You can read it in one sitting. I've probably read it 100 times, right? But what James Allen says in this book, what he understands is as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And what that means is that leadership doesn't start with a strategy, it starts with thinking differently. Allen says a man is literally what he thinks, right? Which means that your organization today is not just a result of the work you've done, but it's the result about how you've been thinking about it, how you've changed your thinking, how you've challenged your thinking, how you've made changes to your beliefs through leadership development. And so the challenge is that most thinking is automatic, right? Your thinking is automatic. You don't tell your mind to think. You may go to a quiet place so you can think, but you don't tell your mind to think. It's always thinking. I believe you have something like, is it 30 days without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without oxygen, but you can't go 30 seconds without brain activity. You'll die. Everything will die, right? So the subconscious mind doesn't decide your future. It repeats your past unless you retrain it. So maybe the most important idea here is that for you to understand that what James Allen says here, he says, men do not attract what they want, but you attract who you are. So the question is, as you're listening to this, is who do I need to become to build and lead the school that I desire to lead? Who do you need to become to build, design, and build the school you want to lead? So everything rises and falls with leadership. It doesn't just get better. Takes intentional action. And part of that intentional action is changing some limiting beliefs that you have. See, a leader who may say, "Oh, there's a teacher shortage and we can't find good people, or our kids can't achieve that, or that won't work here." And that belief shows up in how they try to hire people. It shows up in how they set expectations. Okay. It shows up in their results. A school stuck at low performance over a long time stays stuck because the way that the leaders believe and the teachers believe that it can happen. Remember, what you don't get what you want in life, you get who you are. It's who you are. So if you're having a difficult time, which I know a lot of people are in hiring and developing people, and if you have a copy of this book, I encourage you to study and follow chapter 4 of the book. Open it up, read it, identify the 12 people, strategies, and systems, and start putting it to work. Because by doing that, you're going to improve your hiring system, improve your teacher and employee development system. You're going to improve the execution of everybody on your team. You're going to find yourself with more time because you are not handling it all anymore. No matter if you're the head of the school, a director, a finance director, EC director, teacher listening to this, the information in chapter 4 is going to significantly change how you think about organizing your day, organizing your supervision structure, how you develop people systems. See, you don't have a hiring problem, you have a systematic problem around your hiring. When I was in charge of the seaside school, when I first got down there, it's a very affluent area and community. When I first got down there, we were going to grow our staff from 27 to probably 50 in 2 years. That was the vision I put forward. And everybody just kept saying, "Oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to do that. There's not going to be enough, people who apply for a job." I said, "Why wouldn't people want to come work at the best school in the area?" "Oh, it's just too expensive to live here." I said, "It's too expensive to live here." "Well, there's like 100 schools in the area. There's already teachers who live here." "What do you mean? Too expensive to live here?" "They're already here." I mean, think about that. One shift in thinking. There's already teachers here. We just need to go recruit the best ones. "Oh, but there's a teacher shortage." "Oh, okay. So when's the last time you hired someone out of college?" "Oh, we actually haven't for like, more than 10 years." "Okay, so we're not recruiting in colleges. So are we sure there's a teacher shortage? Or is it possible that we just haven't looked in the right places or we haven't built a partnership?" So what we did is we moved our hiring recruitment system from a reactionary when we need somebody to a 12-month systematic process. We placed ads strategically in areas, Seaside being a place where it's a high area for vacation. We changed our logo, or our motto is "Come work where you vacation." We placed ads in Atlanta, Nashville, and all the areas that come down here, most of Alabama. We made sure that we had multiple press releases per month about our school. We made sure that our social media continuously highlighted our teachers, our students, and our overall school success because people want to work at a winning organization. The 16 steps to hiring are in the book. We just followed it. And within 2 years, we went from 27 to 55 employees. And when I tell you that we had a hard time deciding who to hire, we had a hard time deciding who to hire because we had so many applicants per spot. They didn't have a hiring problem. They had a systems problem driven by belief, belief that there wasn't going to be any applicants because that's what they got in the past. They were thinking like the historians. They were thinking like the reporter. They weren't thinking like the futurists. What's possible? What's possible? Right now, if you're listening to this, and it's March, so you're probably in a renewal time with your vendors, right? Your vendors, your subscriptions, your programs. I got so many schools that are paying so much for unused subscriptions, underutilized vendors. They're spending money, but nothing's changing. So you got to stop thinking like the historian, start thinking like the futurist. Evaluate, eliminate, focus, and improve outcomes in all aspects of your school. Everything should fight for its life to get in two places. Your date book, right? Your calendar, or your checkbook, date book and checkbook. They should fight, right? So you should be evaluating rigorously to make sure that every decision we make is filtered through the futurist vision of who we want to be, of who we want to be. So I'm going to finish with this. Let's talk again about the seeds versus the weeds, okay? Because James Allen says, he said, a man's mind, right? A man's mind is literally a garden, okay? A man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all of his thoughts. He's the master of thought, the molder of character, the maker and shaper of condition, environment, and destiny. He talks about Dale, Carnegie, when he was asked one time, he's like, how did you find all these incredible people? Like, how did you work, right? How did you build, I think something like, hundreds of his employees became millionaires. And like a reporter asked him, like, how did you find such, quality people? He said, well, I wasn't searching for dirt, right? I was searching for the gems in the dirt. So sometimes you got to weed through some of the difficult to get to the best. You got to have a couple bad hires before you really realize what the great ones are. So if you have, as a man thinketh, it's page 11. Just as a gardener cultivates his plot, keeping it free from weeds and growing the flowers and fruits which he requires, so may a man tend the garden of his mind, weeding out all the wrong, useless, and impure thoughts, and cultivating towards perfection and flowers and fruits of right, useful, and pure thoughts. You are the master gardener of your mind. So if you're a school leader doing too many things, too many initiatives, not unclear priorities, maybe it's time for you to think about a stop doing list, right? Stop doing list. Something needs to fight for its life to stay on your calendar. See, most leaders don't struggle because of what happens today. They struggle because they haven't clearly decided where they're going. And I want you to be really thinking about where are we going, who will get us there, what will get us there. And when we do that, then we'll focus on decision, right? Decision. Decision is going to be the key. Your belief drives your thinking, right? Your thinking drives your decisions. Your decisions drive your actions. Your actions get your results. So we need to improve our thinking We want to improve our results. So I hope that added value to you. That's our first session. And so I see we got some, folks here. If you want to ask a question, or if you got something that you want to talk through or walk through, or there's something from the lesson that you want to share, you can either drop a question in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey Tom, it's Christina. I'm sorry I had internet trouble and got bumped out for items 2 and 3, and I want to make sure I capture the whole
Oh, sure.
list
Yeah.
from the beginning. See more, do more, and the seeds of recognition. I have that for 1, and then 2 and 3,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. The 5 things that disruptors do.
Yes.
Yeah. So they see more and do more before, which you got. 2, they challenge the current model, right? So they're constantly challenging status quo, asking, why do we do it this way, right? Why is learning happening this way? Is there a different way we could do it? Number 3 is they focus on people. They don't do programs and systems first, right? They build and develop the people first. So, and then I talked a little bit about chapter 4 in my book and how it's got 12 people development systems. 4 is they move faster. Okay. The universe
Yep.
likes speed. And number 5 is they reinvent themselves.
Yes. Beautiful.
All
Thank
right.
you very
Yeah.
much. I will
Yeah.
have to jump in. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I love this on a Monday. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there one thing that you're thinking about, like with the work you do? I know you do your coaching and academic piece, right? But really asking that question, is there, you don't have to say what the program is, but like, does that help you think on making sure we're spending the right time doing the right things per day?
Yeah, so earlier this school year in one of our coaching collaboratives, we talked about the calendar and
Hmm.
and really sticking to your calendar and blocking time to get into classrooms. And because if you don't have a plan come 8 o'clock, the world is going to create a plan for you.
That's right.
Um, and that is something that I have made a goal of mine throughout the course of this school year. It's funny, my name says Lynn Price, but apparently we were sharing my computer the last time and I need to update my name. um, but since that practice I've really seen a difference um, in my effectiveness, being able to prioritize the people, like you said, number 3, because it's not the programs or the systems. They're going to be there, and sometimes they're effective, sometimes they're not. But by focusing on the people, whether it's the student, the teacher, what's going on with instruction or with student data and whatever, looking at the whole, is there trust there? Can I get in as a coach? And um, really lean into that in a way that, I mean, this whole disruptors list, they work together in so many ways, because sometimes people are challenged by whatever the system or model is, or, I only have this information, or I only have this data. There's a whole lot of those disruptor list items that are contingent on something else on that list. I think that really um, is important to sit with for a little while.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and that's just what you have to ask it, right? Is this going to get us the best result that we desire,
Mhm.
right? And how do we
Mhm.
know? Like, what's the proof that
Right.
it should just fight for its life, because there's only so many hours per day, and there's only minutes per moment or per, lesson, right? Where there's like that instruction is so important. So are we spending our
Yeah,
time, getting the best return on our talent and our time and our team, because we got lots of gaps to fill, lots of gaps.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. One of the phrases that I've worked on with some of my little circle here in our building is, we get to do this, not we have to do this. We get
Mm,
to do this. And when it gets hard, just reframing that thinking um, and seeing it as a privilege, because it is. Yes, it's fast paced. Yes, it's hard. Yes, there's a lot of things coming at us a mile a minute, but we get to do this.
yeah.
We get to be here.
Awesome. All right. Perfect.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Hey there, guys. This is I'm Christina White. I'm with Shining Rock Classical Academy.
Yeah. Hey, Christina.
Hey, we're kind of new well, new again because I remember you from when we first started out back in
Yeah.
I think it was 2015. I remember you guys coming in maybe
Hmm.
2018, something
Hmm.
like that, working with us. Um, but I'm the instructional coach now for our school, and so I took a lot of things away from this. So I appreciate you having this. It's the thing that kind of resonated with me. It was what Christina was saying as well. Was just looking at and reassessing your priorities. And um, the other thing is we are looking at some new curriculums for next year. And, you know, is that what the direction we need to go in? Do we need to look at something a little bit deeper than that? I have a question on my notepad here. Where is SRCA going?
Hmm.
So I guess sitting down with leadership and kind of reassessing our priorities, especially after the last month of events here, is something that we need to kind of focus on and see where we
Yeah.
need to go and what tools we're going to need to get there. So
Yeah, I
just a
love it.
lot of thoughts. I've got
Yeah.
a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, so you make me think about like uncertainty, right? And it's hard to make
Yeah.
decisions when I don't have certainty. And yeah, that'll be an exercise that we will be doing soon, Christina. And the other Christina, she's also in the coaching, collaborative. I think you are too, right? So I don't know if
I
you're
joined it. Yep.
perfect. Yeah. So you guys can, collaborate and so they also are I don't know how much core knowledge and classical education you guys are using, but
We're still
yep.
using core
Yeah.
knowledge for science, social studies, and the K-5 grades, and then the literacy pieces in middle school.
Okay, great.
We've kind of moved away from classical, and we're reevaluating that right now in our academic committee. So
Okay. How about you, other Christina? What how much are you guys still, using of either core knowledge or
We're all
classical?
in.
All in.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're all in K5. We're using second edition amplified materials, K through 5, and we're using the literature components upstairs in our middle school. We have a couple of units here and there for our fourth graders that we've swapped for some novel studies, but by and large, we're still very much in love with core knowledge and what it's doing for our
Yeah.
kids and background knowledge and building relationships to things that they can
Cool.
apply.
Yeah, so there might be some real good conversations there.
yeah.
Christina, as you guys start to make
Okay.
decisions, there's a handful of core knowledge slash, classical ed, schools in our community. So when you guys are ready, but what you made me really think about is there's a quote where there's no vision, people perish, right? Now they don't literally die, but they get stuck. They're not
Yeah.
sure where are we going? Who do we aim, to be? And your school's going through some transition now. And so right
Yeah.
now it's about taking care of the people, right? But yes,
Right.
you got to get to that point where we're clear again.
Yeah.
Because to be uncertain is okay, but to be unclear is to be
Hmm.
unkind. So we want to focus on getting, getting clear on because I can't make decisions unless I have clarity on mission, vision, right, and goals. Cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And it is moving fast too. That's
Yeah.
the other thing that that
Hmm.
we're dealing with
Hmm.
because we're almost at the end of the school year and it moves fast,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether you like it or not.
That's right. Time, you can't manage time. It's moving. It's how you spend it is the makes the biggest difference. I love it. I love it. I love it. Good. Okay, well thank you both for being on live. I appreciate that. And so we'll do this every Monday, 10 o'clock Eastern. And just for the folks listening on replay, if you want to get access, to the live, there, will be a link here in the notes just so you get access, and then you can ask, questions and collaborate like these two just did, which is awesome. It's the first time they're meeting, and I see them in the chat box, sharing contact information, which is fantastic. And so we would love to have you on. So just as so this is how I always want to end. three kind of looks, right? What's something I can do right now, right? So out of this, 45 minutes that you just spent on this lesson, what's one action step I could take right now to put me or my organization in a better spot, right, in the next 30 days? What do I want to see in the next 90 days, right? So for 90 days from now, right, what would that outcome be? And then 1 year from now, if I were to really think big and to change, something about either myself or my team or my structure, what would that be? So I'd always be looking at in the world of the futurist, right? What's that action step I can make right now? Where do I want to be 90 days from now? And 1 year from now, what's the big shift I can make? Because I don't want to be in the same spot I am now a year from now. So anyway, all right. Love you all. Thanks again for being with us. And you guys have an amazing Monday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tom. Take care.
That's it.